Hello, and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg YouTube channel, the YouTube channel dedicated to Mushkookum. Today, I'm crazy excited to show you guys what's included in Mushkookum, the Delta variant. Okay, this is the fourth major release of Mushkookum in as many months, and it's by far has the most amount of changes and feature additions of any release, and I thought Gamma was pretty big. So in Gamma, we obviously added the ability to create your own custom measure definitions, but you had to edit JSON, the JSON file. So that's gone now in Mushkookum Delta, and I'll show you that today in terms of just how easy it is to create custom measure definitions within the GUI of Mushkookum. But before we get started, I have to give a big shout out to Brian Julius over at Enterprise DNA, who suffered through some early builds of Delta and helped me test it. And if you haven't checked out, so big thanks to Brian. And if you haven't checked out the Enterprise DNA stuff, they have some of the best content and tools out there that I've seen. And no, they're not a sponsor. I just like their stuff. I did an article on theme generators, and their theme generation tools are just outstanding. So, all right, let's get into this. As you can see here, I've got my Microsoft Hates Greg Power BI file up. I've got my dates table we'll be working with today. I've got a couple measures, got some calculate columns. I've got an actual real column here. And let's get into it. Let's launch the Delta variant of Mushkookum. All right, so for you guys that are familiar with previous releases, you'll notice a few immediate changes to the interface. The most important being obviously this new icon up here for the second edition of my Learn Power BI book from Pact. Major overhaul of the Learn Power BI title. I think at 3 new chapters. All the content's been updated to the latest version of Power BI in terms of the instructions. I even include instructions for the new format pane, which is in preview. And, if they really, it's scheduled for release for publication, I think January 28th or something like that. If they release the new format pane to general release GA from preview, we'll try to get, the latest and greatest screenshots and instructions in there. So shameless self-promotion aside, what you'll see here again is if you don't have a custom measure file already, I now have the ability, you can click on create, and you can just go ahead and put in your file name and create it and save it. So that'll create the custom measure file and set this setting right here. If you already have one and you want to set what your custom measure is, you can go ahead and pick whatever JSON file you have for your custom measures, and you can set that. So easy as that now, versus having to just type in a text string. So all right, so now the other thing and you'll notice that the tooltip here will always display the full path. So if you have a really long file path and it goes beyond the screen or this text box, you can always see it in the tooltip. All right, so let's do a bit of review as far as creating custom measures and columns. So let's go ahead and pick one of our measure definition formulas, quick measures. So there's over 200 now. I have added in the other column, I've added the AND slicer, the count AND slicer patient cohort, as well as I've added MC aggregations, so multi-column aggregations, and that is down here in totals. So MC aggregations. Just a couple new ones. Mostly this was focused on functionality, not new quick measures. All right, let's pick this weekday measure here, quick measure here. As you can see, I have my aggregation. I can set my date column. So let's go ahead and pick, and you'll notice right here, this is brand new, right? Before you could only pick columns within Mushkookum, but now you can pick dates and measures, or columns and measures appear here in this window. But we'll go ahead and pick our date column. click OK, and we will do our DAX to, so now we're going to do minimum. If we do maximum, regen our DAX, we can do maximum, and we can always click create here. And you'll notice down here that this table has been set, because if I pick, let's say I pick a different table, that changes automatically. But so it's going to try, and MSHGQM is trying to try to suggest, the right table to create this measure in. But if you don't like the table it's chosen, you can always do the drop down, and you can pick whatever table you want that's within your model. All right, so let's say I want to create a column, regen our DAX, weekday column. We've got our table set. You can also set a data category now within MSHGQM if you want to do that, but we don't need that for a weekday column. And we can click create. And over here, it's going to say, oh, you created a new calculated column, and there's our weekday column. All right. So we could also, of course, create a measure. If I do the measure, I regen the DAX. Here's something else that's really cool. This was literally the last addition. If I go back to here, my weekday column shows up automatically within my model. So it's automatically refreshed the minute it gets put in here. It also gets put in here, and it's available for you to choose in your column measure picker, if you will. So I've got my weekday Mac. Now this is one of the cooler features, I think, and I think this actually makes MSHGQM maybe one of the better tools out there for creating measures, because this is something the Power BI desktop can't even do. So folder 1, folder 2, I can set my display folder, so I don't have to flip back and forth between the data view and the model view and my report view. I can do it all right within MSHGQM. So weekday measure, dates folder, create, and as you can see, it's created it within the display folders right here within the model. So again, super cool, excited to get that feature in there. All right, so that basically covers what you used to be able to do within MSHGQM in previous cases. So you can notice that I've got this raw button here versus DAX. So the raw button will actually show you, this is the actual formula definition. So you have here's basically the placeholders for this is the aggregation, this is my column, this is my weekday return, right? So I have this measure definition here, and I can flip between the DAX and the measure definition. So I can edit my measure definition here, and I can see how that's going to impact when I actually convert that to DAX code, right? Oh, and you may be wondering, where are the notes, right? Well, I have this notes button here, and once you activate the notes button, and then I have my notes are out here. So flick back and forth between them. You can always hide the notes pane if you want, but there you have it. So now let's say that now this is very obviously useful for being able to see, basically flip back and forth between the DAX and the raw to see how the measure DAX, how that measure formula is going to act. But you can actually do something even cooler here. So if I edit this to say custom weekday, and I want to create a custom measure definition, all I have to do is say custom, rename the measure, give it a group. I don't need a folder anymore, and I can say create custom. Measure definition created. So now here I have in my custom group, I have my custom weekday measure, and it acts and looks just like the old one, right? So that's all pretty cool, right? So I can just create my custom measure definitions just like that. Now, let's say that we want to get fancy in this. So let's go ahead and pick this. So we have our custom weekday, and in this case, we want to use our weekday start. I'll get to here in a second. And now you notice that we actually support tabs and line returns, which that was my bad, guys. I didn't realize that this window did not support that before, and it's as simple as flipping on a couple switches. But did not notice that that couldn't do that before. Okay, so I've got my new measure definition here, and if I click on create custom, it just updates my measure because I'm on my current measure. All right. So here we go. But now, if you notice, though, we're using the weekday start variable. We got our aggregation, we got our column, but our return type, we don't have the weekday start control in this. So what we can do is we can fix that, right? We can hit edit, and I can go down here to, I don't want the return type anymore. I want my week starts on Sunday. So I want a nicer interface for the folks. So now we have this is our weekday start. And if I don't like what I'm doing, I can always hit cancel and that sort of thing. But again, I can go ahead and update the measure definition. So now when I click back on here, now I have my weekday starts on, my date column, and my aggregation. So there you go. Easy peasy. So now we have our new custom weekday measure definition that includes our week starts on. Now, let's say that we want to further improve this. Let's say that we or do something else that we want to do with this. So let's say we want to add another additional parameter. So let's go ahead and add a parameter here, and we can do done. And we want this parameter to have a default value of 10. And then we just want to say times param. So now again, we can still see how's that going to look. Yep, that works out. We did it correctly. It's going to take our weekday times 10. So we can actually check to see how that's going to actually impact the actual measure that we would create with this. And again, we're going to want to update our measure definition. Easy. So now we have a parameter. Now let's say we want to further improve this. We want to be able to, we don't want this parameter label. We want this to say whole number. All right. So now that's going to say whole number, and we want to provide a tooltip. So here actually can create tooltips for the parameter labels themselves as well as the actual parameters. And say, we can say like enter a number between 1 to 100. Done. And we're done. So now when we hover over this, it says enter a number between 1 and 100. And let's go ahead, and now this says whole number. This says date column. Let's say we want to further say pick and aggregation. Who knows? Whatever you want to do, right? And we say create custom, updates our measure definition. And now we have pick and aggregation. We have a whole number. We've got our tooltip. It's all configurable, however you want to do it, basically. And if you notice, right, you can also, we don't need this anymore. So we'll just get rid of that. We'll update our measure definition. And now we don't have that note anymore over there. So that's how easy it is to create your custom measure definitions. Now you can also start from scratch, right? So if I click on this new button here, I can actually just go down here and say, okay, I'll pick an aggregation, I'll pick a column, and I'll pick a whole number. And it actually, MSHGQM actually goes in and provides you suggested DAX, right, for your custom measure. So it gives you, here's all the different keywords that are available to you, it has some vars here created for you. So all you can do then is you can just edit this to however you want. Let's say that we want to have aggregation times parameter as what's going to be coming back to the user. We don't need this as far as that goes. And we can create our new measure. If we wanted to say whatever we want it to say, we can call our measure whatever it is. We'll leave this new measure, create custom. And now we have our new measure, and here it is. So whatever, now we don't want this date column that was there because of what we had before. And this is obviously set because that's what we have set in the model. So we just want that to say column. Update our measure definition. There's our new measure. So anyway, there you go. I mean, that's as easy as it is in terms of creating new measures and new measure definitions. That's all you have to do. Now, if we don't like what we have here, we can always click on remove. It gives you an are you sure, and it's gone. So I think that's most everything. So I showed you the raw stuff, to be able to flip back and forth between them, folders, the groups. I think that's everything. It's just there's just a lot packed into this release of MSHGQM that allows you to do, I think, some really cool things extremely quickly. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and enjoy the Delta variant. And like and subscribe, give me some comments, some feedback. There is actually a ton of features that I have planned. If you want to see the full feature list, you can always go out to Microsoft Hates Greg Quick Measures, go to releases. Here's everything that was released in Delta. And then here's future release plans, right? I'm planning on including more controls, the ability to define your own custom controls, be able to change the order of the controls in the interface. I want to include support for Power BI tips, the DAX templates. See if I can get that in there. That's really going to be a major focus for the next release. And then I want to eventually support things like calculation groups and things like that, and be able to create new and different things within the MSHGQM tool. So again, excited to get this out there. Hope you guys enjoy the new version, and I'll talk to you guys next time.